Okay, so I've given you some very, it's information that could cause great harm. And I don't think that what I've learned through my experience, people don't, you know, find a YouTube channel that has this information and go out and start beating people up, okay? Or killing people in this case. So I'm not concerned about that. I would tell you that if you start to do some of the things that I tell you to practice, and I will show some things like that with a beanbag and things like that, you better be very careful when you start practicing this stuff. I've had some really horrible things happen by mistake, not knowing how my body was changing when I was learning how to hit properly. Um, if you start to train and you're hitting the beanbag, I'll make a video about how to make one of those. And you start to hit that and you're playing around with somebody, be very careful, okay? And be mindful that you have your vagus nerve that controls the heart. You got to be careful in this area, okay? Because a strike to that can really cause a problem in that nerve junction. It can shut the heart down temporarily. Uh, so, little things like that to be aware of. Anytime you're hitting in the throat, got to be very careful. Um, there's a fine line. Uh, it's not that you can't ever spar or go hammer and tongs, or it's just that we don't realize how much socially we play into that dynamic. If I'm sparring with somebody, it could be a life and death situation, but as soon as I put into this context that it's a sparring session, my body is socially conditioned to respond a certain way. It can never quite be the same as if somebody has a knife to my wife and I have to act. There's just no real way to totally recreate that. And I'll give you an example to help you understand this. You're a hot shot. You've been practicing and you're pretty damn good, right? And you got a reputation. You got some students that think, yeah, he's a tough guy. So you're getting ready to get into a challenge of some sort. And, you go to the dojo and the guy, he does this, he does that. And you're thinking and evaluating and, am I going to be able to take care of this guy? Or, wow, I don't like that art. That's tough, man. That's kind of, it's all on the level of ego at that point. Okay? It doesn't matter. You could say, well, I'll make this learning experience. And if he, crushes me, then he crushes me, and I'll learn from it. I'm not saying it's bad. When I was coming up, I was always the runt in my club because it was a very, very good fighting club. It was a club that was in Baltimore. It was basically all African American, and everybody could fight before they started. So I never had a problem with learning, and they were my brothers. They took care of me. I mean, they made sure that I shined, you know, um, because there was so much love there and so much commitment. But so it never bothered me. I never had felt like I had to prove anything to anybody because I was very fortunate that way. But you're in that situation, or somebody's in that situation. I want you to just really get a sense of that situation. It's an ego thing, okay? Now, you come home, and some guy, your kids are there, your pets, your wife, whatever is really important to you, is a threat, is harming them, and you come in on that. Now, first of all, even in your most evaluative framework, what about ego is involved in that situation, okay? Nothing. Do you care if that guy studied Gracie Jiu Jitsu or, Mama Pua's Kung Fu that kills, or, you know, what you care about is you want to live so you can protect your family. And that's your priority, is basically to make sure they're okay, or whoever you love, your pets. I don't care, I would, fight to the death for one of my pets. I love my dogs, you know, as I would for my family, obviously. But I'm just saying that you have a totally different mindset. You move differently. You process differently. You're on a different level, okay? That same guy who might take you down in a sparring match because you're sparring and the situation, I guarantee you it's a totally different ball of wax if he tries to take you down in that situation. Okay? The reason street fights wind up the way that they do is for a couple of reasons, and I'm going to share them with you. I bounced for many, many years of my life, and my son will confirm a lot of, because he also has done some bouncing while in the court. So what I'm telling you, I can almost assure you, it's not just my feelings and my experience. That's my point here. And what I'm telling you is, everybody is a martial artist and everybody wants to spar. And then when you watch when things actually go down and happen, nobody knows a damn thing. Okay? Nobody. And all the time I was bouncing, I think I saw a proper martial arts technique utilized. Maybe once or twice, if that much. Because it's not about that. Now, as a bouncer, you might, because you're putting yourself outside of that conflict zone. A good bouncer. There are a lot of shitty bouncers that get involved and hurt people and get hurt and yada yada. But if you're a decent individual and you're doing that job, you're not into that ego thing, you know. So it's not gonna happen that way, and you're going to have a different approach and outlook. You understand what I'm saying about this? Excuse me, the stuff that I'm showing you, it's for life and death. And when you're really strong on adrenaline, you think you're going to puke and you think you're going to pass out, and suddenly you feel like you can destroy the room. You can grab things and rip them really hard. You can do very basic movements very well if you've trained them. Your responsiveness to things that you reflexively have learned come to the surface in varying degrees depending on your training. And nobody in that situation is going to revert to try to do things in a sports manner or try to scuttle around on the ground or some of the things that people think, will work. And things escalate to that situation pretty quickly. If you're there already, then you're learning a martial art the way it's properly designed to be used, okay? That's why if you look at combat arts, look at all the Japanese Kyoryu. When they're teaching you the forms, when a teacher who has been given his service to the art his entire life, and he's 70 years old, and he never did anything outstanding or different, well, he's teaching you those forms because when you are on that battlefield, when that form was first developed, you didn't really have the option to do a lot of special things, okay? You could move linearly. You could see if you had armor on, only in certain ways. And if you were on the ground, you were dead. So you had to be able to do things that were very basic. And then, you could develop your own understanding of those techniques and train your own things. But the core art looks very basic. But there's a reason for that. Even stuff that looks very, if you look at some of the, there's some Sikh arts, not the Gatka, but the older arts. They are incredibly well designed systems. And even though they look very sophisticated in some ways, they're actually very simple when they're done properly. If you watch what they're doing, for the very same reason. There you go. So take this stuff and put it where it belongs. It's not for your sports jiu-jitsu class, obviously. And understand when something like this comes to the surface, what it will be like. Okay, we'll stop the series here for now.